This is something completely new for me. I am not great at making videos, and so I apologize in advance for what will likely be extremely poor production quality. Hopefully in the future that will improve, but for now, I'm gonna work with what I've got. I'm making these videos to explain some of my lyrics and poetry. I've always loved the stories behind songs and poems and hymns and all these things. And so, as I write poetry, as I write music, I want to be sharing the songs with people. I believe that we're all created in order to create. I think that our stories are supposed to inspire others. And so, in doing this, I'm not trying to get a pat on the back. I'm not trying to put my content out there so that people will applaud me or anything like that. I'm trying to create community. Um, I want to put my stuff out there so that others are inspired to also write. I've always had a love for writing ever since I was a child, and when I was younger, towards my latter high school years, even though I loved writing, even though I had the desire to write books or write articles as a living, I didn't do it because I thought it was impractical. I'm about 22 years old now, and I really wish that I had started writing for a livelihood when I was 16, because if I had spent these past 6 years working towards something, I might have more direction right now. Well, it's never too late. I'm starting my pursuit of writing as a career, but part of the reason that I want to create this platform, part of the reason that I want to share these things with people, is so that they chase after the things that they're good at. Each person is created with a unique purpose for a very specific reason. And I believe that we live our most fulfilled lives when we are doing the things that we're designed to do. So for me, if I was designed to write, if that's the way my brain works, then I need to be writing. It doesn't matter if I'm getting a paycheck for it or not, I need to be writing. And so whatever it is that you do, whatever it is that you love, do that thing, because that's what you were designed to do. Well, with that being said, I want to get into some poetry. This first poem that I want to talk about, I wrote this August of 2019, I believe. And this poem is extremely ecclesiastical in nature. What I mean by that is it takes a lot of cues from the book of Ecclesiastes in Scripture, where there's this wise man, and he's received a ton of stuff, but at the end of it all, he realizes that none of it is worth anything. Eventually, he's going to die, and what matters at the end of it all? This poem focuses on all of the things that we invest our time in, all of the things that we give our life to that maybe they're not worth it. So I go through a couple of different things in this poem. One of the first things that I talk about is distractions, and this is throughout the entire poem, of just these little things that we spend so much time focusing on. And I think this really hit home for me when I realized and this sounds ridiculous, but just how much time I spent watching Netflix. I was left home a lot as a kid, and so I had a fair amount of time to fill, or even if people were there, maybe I was still in my room just watching Netflix, and I added it up at one time, and it was just a ridiculous amount of hours that I had spent watching these like TV comedies, and those were giving nothing back to me. And it's crazy because we allow ourselves to give our lives over to things that give nothing back to us. I don't know about you, but generally speaking, if I spend 2 hours sitting on my backside watching Netflix, if I get up from that, then I'm gonna feel kind of gross. I'm not gonna feel rejuvenated. I'm gonna feel drained. I'm gonna feel lethargic. But if I instead take those 2 hours and I go out into the mountains, which I love being out in the mountains, or if I decide to write or play piano or whatever it is, do something that excites me, then I walk away from that time feeling refreshed and rejuvenated and ready to face whatever it is coming at me. I want to focus on those things instead. And so in this poem, I break down all these different things that we allow ourselves to be distracted by, whether that's sports, whether that's even good things. I talk in the poem about how people talk about these horrible things that are happening 3,000 miles away. And this is something that I see over and over again on social media, where I think that Americans they deal with their guilt about what's happening somewhere else by just talking about it and being sad about it and not really doing anything. And I'm not trying to say that I'm any better. There are things that break my heart, and haven't done much about it. The world is so connected right now. We're very aware of horrible things that are happening in other countries, and we talk about it a lot, but do we really do anything? And if we're just talking about these things and we're not doing anything, then that becomes just a distraction. It's not giving you anything, and you're not giving anything to that situation. So whether it's sports or these horrible national disasters, whatever it is, there's so many things that we just turn into distractions that mean nothing. Part of the poem I say, look here, eat here, isn't it great? The food is stupendous. That movie was great. And it's just there's all these things that we've become obsessed by, all these like movie series and restaurants and all these things that they just don't matter. And I'm not saying that those things are bad, but if we allow those things to become the focus of our life, then we are living a half-life. The second thing that I kind of address in this poem is the issue of morality. I'm a Christian. I'm a follower of Jesus. I love Jesus. He influences everything that I do. I try to model my life after the way that he lived, how he cared about people, how he reached out and spent time with the people that the world hated. And he didn't care about his own reputation. He didn't care about what people said about him. He just loved on everyone. And I want to be like that. But there's a lot of Christians out there who, and again, I'm not perfect here. I fall into the same trap all the time, but so often Christians are not truly chasing after Jesus. They're chasing after morality. It's not Christianity. It's moralism. It's chasing after this standard of a list of right and wrong. And if I do all these things that are right, if I'm a really good, upstanding, moral person, then I win, right? I'm having a good life. But the problem is, if you're focused on your own morality, if you're focused on your own reputation, that tarnishes your interaction with everyone. First off, like even the world understands, even the most worldly people understand that if you are helping someone just so that other people are impressed with you, that's the wrong motivation. And that's just the start of it. I think that there's a lot of Christians out there, and I've been guilty of this myself, who they're so focused on their own self-righteousness that they begin to condemn other people. And that's not really our place. Scripture says that Christians are supposed to speak life into other people, that they're supposed to love even the lowest. And that's not what I always see happening. I talk in the poem about this person who's obsessed with his own morality, but then eventually his mask is removed. And there's these jackals, these heathens that he thinks he's so much better than, but then he realizes that he's no better. He's just the same as these people that he thought were so low. And this poem, again, is biographical in nature. This is something that I've experienced. This is something that I've gone through. And these are kind of two ends of the pendulum, right? There's this worldly, I'm going to live, I'm going to enjoy life, I'm going to do all of these things, I'm going to get distracted by money and sex and power and all these things. Or there's the other side of moralism, and I'm going to become a pious religious person, and when people look at me, they're going to be impressed by how good and how nice I am. And both of those things, at the end of the day, if you're just going to die, then why does that matter? And I don't delve deeply into the answer in this poem. At the very end, though, I say, here at the base of existence, we find you and me and Yahweh, and beat, 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 beat. And again, those beats, that illustrates the heart, just this constant rhythm that follows us throughout our entire life, reminding us of this internal question that we have. I say in the poem that there's a question reminding us why we don't have the answer inside of us, but we know that there's something greater than us. And at the end of the poem, I address that thing that's greater than us is Yahweh. Yahweh is the covenant name of the God of Israel. That name, Yahweh, literally means I am who I am. It means that God is the same yesterday and today and forever, that he's never going to change. There's so many things that come and go, so many distractions. And life is constantly changing, but God never changes. There's so many things that we look out into the world and we try to find meaning behind those things. But when we look at Scripture instead, when we look at Jesus Christ instead, when we look at Yahweh instead, we see how we're supposed to live our life. Because here's the thing. I believe that we are created beings. We are created beings, and if we are to find meaning in our life, we must look to the one who created us. If God created you and me and everything else in all of existence, then surely he knows what meaning is. Surely he knows what we're supposed to be doing on this earth. And so instead of distracting myself by all of these things that the world puts out, whether that's Netflix or sports or social awareness or whatever it is, instead of distracting myself with those things, if I look instead at Yahweh, I find meaning. I find satisfaction. And in the poem, I was really specific about saying that it's not just me and Yahweh. No, it's you and me and Yahweh. Because as you look at Yahweh, as you look at God, you come to an understanding that everything that he created is important. It's not just me and my own religion. No, this is me and God flowing through me to love other people and to interact with other people. There's so many things that I'll get distracted by, whether that's, again, religion or morality or just ridiculous things. And at the end of the day, I'll feel empty. But when I realign my life, when I focus on Yahweh, when I focus on Jesus, I find meaning. And that focus on that time with Jesus and that time with Yahweh completely changes everything else. I'm not some sort of hermit who lives up in the mountains alone and just meditates all the time. That's not what this poem is about. This poem isn't about leaving the world and leaving ever watching movies or ever going on Facebook or whatever it is. That's not what this poem is about. This poem is about focusing on the one thing that matters and letting that thing that matters influence every other decision you make. And so yeah, maybe that is leaving social media. Maybe that decision is leaving behind movies or even friends, whatever it is. But the focus is not those things. The focus is Yahweh, you and me and Yahweh. Thanks so much for listening. If you want to read the poem, you can find it at poemawriting.com, or you can also click on another video. I'll include a reading that I do myself of that poem. Thanks again for listening. Have a great day.